horror of flea infestation a little bit. I think that's it. I mean, this is enough of, I guess, a tease of that, of the awful conversation about bugs. At the listener at home can piece together, use context clues to.
Yeah, context clues of me being late because I was vacuuming my house obsessively.
I mean,
Ugh.
I was going to say it's fine. The Graceview Patient. The
Yes.
Graceview Patient came out in October. You have had a busy year, I guess, with releases, multiple releases. I've had multiple friends who have been raving about your books.
Oh, good. Yeah, it was.
Exactly.
I think it was, in hindsight, a bit of a mistake to have all those books come out in one year, but we're through it now. I can be a little bit more reasonable with future book releases.
I mean,
I will say it wasn't planned that way. It kind of fell out that way because of various shifting timelines on different projects. So, but Graceview Patient was always supposed to be October 2025, and that is where it was.
Okay, excellent. It's great. I mean, I say that about every book I have on the podcast, but I generally have
You mean
books
you don't invite people whose books you just hated?
don't know. I usually don't. It's the thing where I'm like, I'd like to talk to people whose books I really liked. Great authors who write great books. Very upsetting, very, very gripping, very, I don't know, disgusting at times, honestly. But I'm here for all that. I have lots of, I guess I have a series of big questions and a series of little tiny questions too. So let's start with a bigger question. Medical horror.
Do you want me to describe the book real quick for anyone who has not heard of it?
Sure, you can do that. I would say go read the book before you listen to the rest of this conversation.
Okay, yeah, fair. That's also true.
But go ahead.
It is a contemporary hospital gothic is how I like to pitch it. It is about a woman undergoing a experimental medical trial, in excruciating detail about the medical trial. And as the trial progresses, it becomes less clear whether she's experiencing really weird medication side effects or whether the hospital is haunted, or both. And I guess that is the quick one-liner.
You did a very good job. A lot of people are very bad at that. At the elevator. I describe the book real quick. Some people cannot do it. It's a learned skill. It's very hard.
I had to get good at it once I had like 5 books out, and everyone wants to know about everything that's on the table, and I have to run through it as quick as possible. There's certain code switching I can do for, if a reader I think is going to be very excited about the lesbian throuple in The Starving Saints, I'm going to lead with that, and if not, I'm going to kind of backburner it.
You can read people. You're like, yeah. Oh, you look like the type. You're gonna like. Starving Saints is also great.
Just stare at someone's eyes and go, "How do you feel about cannibalism? How do you feel about sensual cannibalism?"
Yeah, lots of eating people.
Sorry.
No, you're good. I was gonna say I have a little menu that I hand to people at table when I take. Oh,
that's smart.
So people can read, and I tell people to steal my idea. It looks like
I have a bookmark on the back because I on the back of it I have like a very quick like half sentence pitch for each book with like a genre code, because I got to a point where it's hard to keep for a person who is not me. If it's hard for me to keep track of all my books, it is going to be hard for a reader who has never read one of my books to keep track, and hard to pick. So menu bookmark. Yeah, absolutely.
Visual aids are very useful. That's just a general advice to any authors out there who are trying to sell your books in person, especially. Visual aids, very useful. Readers like to read.
And visual aids that they can take away with them so they don't think you're staring at them the whole time. That also helps.
Okay, question about Graceview Patient. So medical horror, as I broadly would categorize this book as, the connections to body horror, I think, are right there. There's a particular line I wanted to highlight, which I love so much. I've been reduced to a series of tubes and bags, and my God, very effective. But I was there. I feel like as I was reading it, I wanted your take on this. Do you think there's also a connection, specifically in this book, but maybe even more broadly, to cosmic horror, to into being felt meaningless, to being pushed down to nothing? Like, it feels like
Yeah.
a lot of that existential, like, I am just a little tiny nothing in this giant system.
Yeah, I think that that is definitely an element, and there's a one of my favorite conversations in the book is kind of towards the end, and it's between Meg, the main character, and one of her nurses who we otherwise haven't really heard much from. She's kind of the other night nurse besides Isabel. And she's an old timer. And she's basically like, okay, look, I know that we talk about fighting illness, like fighting cancer, stuff like that. And so you want to be the protagonist and you want to be active and you want to be doing things. But to fight, you need to be passive here. To fight means to trust us to do our jobs. And of course, that's very fraught because she doesn't know if she can trust them to be acting in her best interest.
Right.
But it is this weird tension about being sick, where A, you have very real limitations on what you can do, and B, like there is an element of it whereas you need to stop existing in the way that we tell ourselves is like the right way to engage with the world. And it's very unsettling and very like, what does that even make me if I'm just a body in a bed waiting for time to pass, right? And that's not even getting into the I don't as much as I'm sure we're going to talk about spoilers here, I want to kind of hold the final reveal of like
Oh
the
no,
maybe
I try and avoid most spoilers.
okay
I try
there
and
there
dance around things. I can also
yeah
I will add in if we tip into a spoiler, I can also just edit
okay.
around.
So when I was coming up with this book, I didn't want the villains to be the care team. I didn't want it to be like Cure for Wellness type or Nurse Ratchet type,
Right.
like hospital horror. I wanted it to be like these doctors and nurses are honestly just trying to do their job. Like they're showing up every day for their shifts. And like, so some of the stuff that they're doing might be a little bit hinky, but they're not like, like the evil force that is happening in this hospital. If there is an evil force that's happening in this hospital, though, it's a very strange one. And it's a very, I think also touches on that cosmic horror element of encountering something that does not notice you, that does not care about you, that it's not personal, it's not even predatory. It just is. This is not Graceview Patient specific, but I've always thought that like you could view climate change through a cosmic horror lens
I have a book.
because
I wrote a book
okay,
about it.
cool. So
Yeah.
you get it, yeah.
Yes.
That is like it doesn't care. The weather doesn't care. The
Right.
planet doesn't care, but it's going to wreck your shit. So,
Go read What
yeah,
Dwells Beneath the Waves by Robbie Dorman. It's available wherever books are sold. It is Lovecraft meets climate change is how I pitched that book.
awesome.
Um, yes, it feels like I don't know if it's just my brain, but I just see cosmic horror and more stuff that's not even ostensibly is. This book is not really a cosmic horror book in most ways, but I feel
Mhm.
just that the way that you describe it, like yeah, you're just a body in like this big thing.
Yeah, I just honestly, I'm very cynical, and I'm like, really, what's scary about something that a person can actually defeat? Why not?
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
true.
think people are that good in most cases at like rescuing themselves. I think a lot of times they're going to be overwhelmed by something not that is not what we think of as like a force or an intelligence. It's
Right.
kind of where my brain goes. Like I'm going through
Uh,
my backlist, going, okay, yeah, okay, yeah, okay, yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's a thing that comes up. It's like, and then I think about it a lot. I'm like, I just keep writing the same thing. All I do is just write the same book over and over and over and over
There,
and over
there have
again.
been there have been moments of like a crisis of confidence of like, oh God, am I writing the same book again? Um, I gotta say, two of my books, a lady takes a knife to the throat and then later gets back up again.
There
Like
is.
it happens in two of them, and I feel weird about it.
I read this after I read Starving Saints, and there is literally. I when I read the words medieval knight in this book, I went, oh, let's highlight that. What is that? I wonder what that is. I love those. I like those when I see motifs like that arise in an artist, an author or
Mhm.
artist's like their portfolio, you might say, their library. Um, Meg is oft in the book. is speaking to us,
Mhm.
pleading with us sometimes, which I really, which it really worked on me. I was like, I'm sorry, Meg, I'm trying. I don't know what to do. Uh, but we don't ever get, at least unless I missed it, but it feels like we never get an explicit mechanism for how she's doing
No.
this. Right. Um, is this nebulous to me to kind of just instill mystery, to add to that feeling of Meg is just screaming into the void and no one's listening? Is it just easier not to have to like, oh no, this is her journal she left behind or something like that? Or is it all the above?
It's kind of all the above. It feels a little bit, like, contrived and hokey to me to have an explanation.
Okay.
I say that as I have a book coming out, now that we're in 2026 this year, that is a similar sort of first person talking to somebody book. It's a vampire book called Milk Teeth, which the premise is what if vampires had to breastfeed? Um,
Stop digging, you hit oil.
yeah, and, we're also super gross about it. Um,
Again,
but
stop digging.
that one, I knew from the beginning the like that one, it was very firm. Okay, this is who this character is talking to, and this is why she's telling the story. For Meg, it was always more, I know why she's telling the story, but it almost doesn't matter how she's telling the story because no one's listening, right? No one is going to necessarily like show an impact. So in some ways, Meg is telling the story to herself. I can see this taking place just entirely in her head during a lucid moment, running through the events and trying to figure out how they fit together. um but who knows, maybe she eventually gets a social worker.
That would
That
be
would be good. She should have, I mean, so I had this book is very heavy on the medical detail. And to do that, because I am not a medical professional, I wrote the book and then hired my friend who is both a writer and she's now shifted roles, but she used to be an ER nurse for many years, to go through and fact check my medicine because I knew that any changes I had to make to the medicine would change the structure of the book. So there was no point in handing it to my editor until I'd figured all that stuff out.
right.
Um, and she had such amazing feedback, and like the book would not be what it is without her. But I do remember at one point she's like, okay, I understand this is a horror novel and I don't think you should add this, but I do want to flag that in the real world there should be a social worker involved here, here, and here, especially since this is a well-funded program. So there are little liberties I took with like how certain issues get dealt with in order to allow for plot to happen and allow for things to be upsetting. Like you could definitely write a horror novel where everything just runs the way the American medical system runs without needing to tweak it. But there are liberties taken with, for instance, how a certain character explains what the state requires for tuberculosis treatment.
Right.
Um, which my friend, for the most part, was like, I can believe that he'd lie about this. But the big thing is, she should have had at least a care coordinator, if not a social worker. And so we can just imagine in a happy world that this is afterwards, and she's telling it to a therapist.
Right. I mean, I don't know, like what you say about the American medical system. I could believe all kinds of things that, a patient just doesn't get because, hey, we didn't have them that week or that month, or there's some oversight and they didn't get it, or someone checked the wrong box.
Someone's on maternity leave and we didn't hire anyone to cover
Nope,
for
there's
her.
just no one
Yeah.
there.
So this is interesting too. So this book, I, for whatever reason, I have colleagues who sell a million translations, right, of every book, and I don't often. I only have a couple translations of each book, and I have no translations of this book, no UK distribution, and I'm actually kind of okay with that because I think this is a very American book.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
don't know how well it would translate to a different readership because yeah, this is an American hospital system and pharmaceutical system book.
Right. I mean, I was going to even say that there is moments in this that the kind of Kafka-esque, maze of bureaucracy
Mhm.
does kind of infiltrate, which is also the American medical system. And I don't know, I think foreigners of all types, who would be reading it, would be like, oh yeah, it's America. I've heard
Yeah.
how bad it is. They would go,
Oh,
oh,
yeah,
okay, yeah,
of
sure.
course she's signing up for this because she can't get medical insurance otherwise. Of course she's gonna do that.
Yeah. Um, I this is, I don't know, a strange question, and maybe not. I don't think it's a spoiler because I don't think it never amounts to something. I think, like, again, unless I missed something, but Doctor Santos.
Mhm.
I don't think we ever see Doctor Santos, right?
Nope. You
Okay,
do not.
okay, that's what. Okay, so that spin. I just want to make sure that I don't getting it from the source because I was like, there were multiple times in the book. I'm like, we have not. Where the hell is
It
Doctor
started
Santos?
as a joke in my pitch to
Okay.
my publisher, and every person that I talked to was like, "No, you have to keep that in." And
Okay. I was wondering because
my
I'm like, is it just to focus on the nurses and the fact that that we see a sales rep more than we see the doctor?
Yeah, some of it was because I didn't care about the doctor character, and like and the doctor character would become the thing that people would like project assumptions on about antagonism and everything else on, and I didn't really want to go that direction. But it was also like largely a joke because if you've ever been in the hospital for any length of time, trying to get a hold of your doctor is difficult. They are very busy, and like yeah, sometimes they'll come by while you're not fully coherent. And the best thing though was again when my friend the nurse was reviewing was editing the book for doing their editing pass on the book for me. They were like they also they liked it and they're like I started off just being annoyed and then I started laughing and then I got real mad. And I was like good, it's enrichment.
I thought there was gonna be like a reveal or something. I thought I
No,
was
he's just busy.
that's what I mean. Like I realized at a certain point I went, oh no, we're just not we're not gonna see Doctor
And it's not
Santos.
so there's also a point that reveals that we the reader have not seen the doctor.
But
Meg does
she
recall
has,
conversations.
yes, I did see that where it's like, oh
It
well,
happens off page.
the
Um,
doctor showed by. I'm
but the
like,
weird things
okay,
happen later in the book though, where like we're so used to not seeing him that like we're with Meg assuming that she hasn't seen him, but it turns out maybe she has and
yeah,
doesn't, and it's
remember.
just not in the book for other reasons. So, but
I
yeah,
mean,
she sees more. She sees an anesthesiologist. She sees a pathologist. Okay, I don't think she sees a pathologist, but she sees a couple other professionals more than she sees her doctor by
right.
far. And then of course her nurses are her main
Yeah, the
human
nurses
contact.
are like they are the it's the feels like that's the heavy emphasis is like you meet all this
Yeah.
cast of nurses, you meet Adam. Uh
Who was not in the original pitch or outline,
I
interestingly enough.
I don't I can't imagine this book without
Yeah,
him.
so I was sitting down to write it and I was like, there is something missing. And I was like, okay, I'm consciously structuring this book off of classic gothics. There needs to be the tempting but really bad idea red flag guy that's
That's
like the scion of the house that this chick has wandered into.
you
That
knocked
is
that
a
out of the
like
park then.
right, like my brain's just like just for the closest reference in my head. It's like, oh, he's the dude in Mexican Gothic, or you know, it. And so, and then he just, I was like, oh, and of course he would be a pharmaceutical rep, obviously,
Obviously.
um, and and then went from there. And he you know, adding him unlocked the whole outline for me. I for this book, I had written a synopsis pitch, not an outline, not like a scene by scene outline. And I learned from that that it is very easy to yada, yada, yada over like the whole second act of a book. Because I went to go write for my synopsis for the second act and went, I have 3 scenes here. This is not the middle chunk of the book. But luckily, I had given myself enough tools and threads and stuff to beef that out pretty quickly. But
Second acts are
it
hard.
was humbling to realize I had just like, I thought I had a whole book. I had a beginning and I had an ending and I had some stuff happens here.
I mean, that's good enough, right? You couldn't. I didn't catch on. I mean, I don't feel. It didn't feel like. I don't know. I feel like I have a spidey sense for like filler second acts, where I'm just like, it
Hmm.
feels like we're just treading water until we can get to
Hmm.
the fun thing. Sometimes I'm like, no, this. I don't know.
Oh
There's
yeah,
stuff. Happens.
yeah, and like I because I knew where I had to come into the second act, and I knew where I had to exit the second act, and I was like, what interesting stuff can happen here? What would add to this? What would let me like hit vibes things that I put in the pitch but didn't know how to get to?
Right.
Like basically like building up the using the whiteboard for evil thing that keeps going on during this book, which
I
I
loved it too. I
yeah,
loved it.
that was a tricky thing to like balance of how far can I push this whiteboard and still have it feel plausible and not like completely campy.
Oh, I mean, I never.
But
Campiness is
you
not
can
a
see
word
you
I
can
would.
see I know you can see a version though where the whiteboard goes full camp, which would be pretty fun, but would not be this book.
That's more like, I don't know. That feels like Hausu, like the Japanese house. I have to always clarify it's the Japanese for house, not the American house movie, which are very different things. Which Japanese house? If no one's ever seen Japanese House or Hausu, you should go see that movie. But it's very camp.
I will put it on my list.
It's very it is it's a horror movie, but it is also incredibly campy and strange. And I have this when you say like it can when you veer into silliness,
Hmm.
some motif to, and it veers into silliness or campiness. That's what Houseu does on purpose. That movie does it on purpose, but in that movie there is an avalanche of hot dogs at one point.
Nice.
I won't give any context. There's barely context in the movie, so it's there. Um, Graceview Memorial, the hospital.
Yes.
You mentioned like the guy. It's a character effectively.
Yes. Yes.
Um, but it is also, it feels like there is these, again, like this book feels like it peeks into cosmic horror at times, and this is, I guess, connected to that. It feels like there's this effort to, and I think it's real life hospitals are like this, but it feels like this veering into a liminal space,
Yes.
into like where the maze, like, again, the maze like atmosphere
Hmm.
of the medical system, and then the maze like atmosphere of this hospital. Was that like targeted? I want to make this, give Meg reason to get lost, get
Hmm.
to be missing inside the Graceview.
Yeah. Some of it was just like at some point I need to let her leave her room because it readers need a sense of relief and then you need to make it worse.
Mm-hmm.
It's like so just I have basically all of my books are claustrophobic in some way. I really like just kind of marinating in the same environment for the whole book, and but little tiny excursions are useful. I so This one, though, I honestly, it's based a lot in real life experiences. So when I had my kid, there were a lot of fun complications.
Fun.
Turned out okay, but I was in the hospital for multiple days afterwards and needed blood transfusions. And my kid was in the hospital for a little bit over a week. And I had a great care team. I actually, it is not that the thing was so terrifying that I decided to write this book. It was the thing was so turned out so well and fine that I wanted to write a book. That's why I didn't want the nurses to be the bad guys
Right.
necessarily. So, but while I was in the hospital, along with the blood transfusions, though, they want you up and about postpartum for many reasons. And so, even though I'd had a fun C-section, and even though I was very anemic, I would walk over to the NICU every day, sometimes multiple times, to go be with my kid. And to do that, you had to like know how to find the lobby again from the postpartum wing, and then you had to go across the lobby and sign in and get buzzed through a door to go to the NICU. And then to get to the NICU, you walked through the hall of a shut down part of the hospital.
Oh
All the
my
lights were
god.
out,
Oh my
like
god.
empty stations. And then you would buzz in at the other end, they let you in, you'd be in the NICU. And then to go back, you would go through this again, darkened hallway, pick up a red phone that was on the wall. No one would respond, and the door would open. Which I tried to find a way to build into the book, and I couldn't quite make it work.
That's incredible.
But that I was like, I literally like while I was waiting for because the door opens very slowly. While I like took out my phone and like wrote down like a note to myself about this door because I was like, okay, this is going into book at some point, or at least the feel of this.
That's
Again,
incredible.
totally fine, like totally like as good of a hospital experience as you can have in that situation. But hospitals are weird, and the more I talked to the nurses I know and like the other medical professionals I know, everyone agreed hospitals are weird. Like hospitals are not designed to be comfortable. That is not the point of them. They are not supposed to be like secure housing. They are there to do like it is a purpose built
Right.
building, and it is and system, and like it's this weird place too where like the race is between can they fix you before being in the hospital makes you worse, because hospitals are not safe. Like
Yeah.
they're just inherently, because of how infections work, because of how like the best way to get care is to um, disrupt your sleep schedule. Like it just doesn't work out very well. But yeah, so it absolutely designed to both be liminal and to be like the gothic manor. My original title for it was just Graceview.
Okay.
Um, and then they decided they wanted to put the focus more on Meg, and it became the Graceview Patient, which I'm fine with both.
Okay, good.
Graceview is shorter to type, so I still type that a lot instead of the Graceview Patient. But
I mean, I think we all have our own little like short names for our little babies. It's like, oh, this is yeah, it's just that. I don't have to if I could type some acronyms to some friends, writing friends, and
oh yeah,
they immediately know what I'm talking
yeah.
about. I'm just this book. They're like, "Oh, that book?" Yeah, that book. We're out of time for the first act. Time for the second act, which is well, wait here. I'll do my official. Go read the Graceview Patient. That's my. I have to end the first act. Tell people go read first segment. Go read the Graceview Patient. Now we will go to the second act, which is broader bookish questions, writing questions. My first question is from my last guest, and I will ask you for a question at the end of the
Okay.
segment for my next guest. This question is from Emma E. Murray, and her question is: what's the hardest scene or character you've ever written, and what made it so difficult?
Ooh. I'm going through like every book I've written. What was really hard? Probably the final combat scene in the Starving Saints. Because I had, that book has 3 POV characters, all of whom are involved in that fight, but only seen through one of them, and it's the one who's been kind of out of the loop for a little bit. But so each character had to have an impact on the scene, had to influence how it went in a way that felt correct to their character, and also like helped start bringing their arc to a close. They were fighting against an enemy that was by far more powerful than they were, and I had to make that feel believable and interesting. That character has the ability to make the other characters not be able to perceive each other, and it's a close third perspective. And basically just there were a lot of moving parts, and it was like I don't usually write combat scenes. I have, and I mostly though in like fan fiction, not in my published books. And so like I literally the whole book of the Starving Saints I was super intimidated by writing. And like I had come up with a system, and so it was basically my second book syndrome book, even though I already had like I had turned in Death of Jane Lawrence, which was my actual second book, but it was my first book that I was writing, full length book I was writing since getting an agent. The other Luminous Dead and Death of Jane Lawrence, I had wrote the original drafts too before that. So, and it was 3 POVs, which I wasn't used to doing, and it was more complicated than I was used to doing, and I would trick myself into writing by writing out of order, like on a sentence, like on a paragraph level.
Oh,
I would
okay.
I would write like the bits that I had a strong idea for, even if it was in the middle of the chapter, and then I would hop around in the document and slowly stitch it together. And the final scene, I ended up doing the same thing, but on a sentence level. Like I had note cards of like weapons people had, injuries people had, abilities people had, marks I needed to hit emotionally, and I was just patchworking it together, while also drinking a fair amount of vodka at the time. So the fact that it came out in a mostly usable format, and I had to go through and clarify some bits later, but like it didn't need a full rewrite in any capacity. I don't actually know how I did that. So
It's a good answer. I'm keeping that question. I told Emma that. I'm like, that's a good question. I'm going to keep that forever. I'm going to ask everybody that question. Um, I will ask the question I ask everybody, which is, who is an author more people should be reading?
Hiron Ennis.
Hiron Ennis.
Yeah, they wrote Leech, and more recently, The Works of Vermin. The Works of Vermin is one of the best books I've ever read, and it is like you'll read the pitch for it, you're like, okay, exterminator's hunting a giant centipede that eats art. Yeah, that's like the first like 10%, and then it just goes off the rails. It's so good.
What works of vermin? That
Um,
I need to I immediately need to look that up. I always like finding new authors. Um, let's see. What's a good another question? When do you know something is done?
um, it's like an actual sense. Like I have a feeling when I'm writing a book of the overall shape of it that's just in my head, and it's hard to put into words, but I can tell when something is wrong, and like it just scratches at the back of my head even if I can't place my finger on what's wrong about it. So basically when I stop getting those feelings, um I structurally I tend to edit as I go at this point. So usually I am sure it is coming for me. And I have done large rewrites in the past. Luminous Dead and Death of Jane Lawrence both had large rewrites, but since then, the first draft of my books since then have been largely what they've ended up being. Some parts have ended up being like expanded or condensed, but I haven't had to reshuffle anything. And every time I mention, like I say this out loud, I'm like, this, I'm setting myself up for disaster. Um, but yeah, it's like it is a physical sense of nothing is so out of place that it's annoying, you know?
Okay. All right. Good.
I mean, there are elements I'm always like looking back at books. I'm like, oh, I wish I had done this differently, or maybe I should have done this differently. A lot of that though is not so much based in the book itself as like my conception of what I should do versus what I think is right for the book.
Mhm.
And I'm it's for now, you know, I work pretty hard to try and distinguish those two things from each other. Of does this need to be fixed in this book, or is this just I chose to write a different book than a different way I could have written it?
Yes, moving furniture around.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think I was talking about literally last week with Emma about that. Maybe it's just the nature of this question. What's the best piece of advice you followed?
Be as weird as you want to. Like don't self-edit the weirdness. Like there's limit to that obviously if the weirdness like just doesn't make sense in the book you're writing that you maybe need to rein it in. But whenever I'm like, "Oh, I want to write this but maybe it's too weird." The answer is always to put it in. I have never had an editor ask me to take something out because it's too weird.
I I think I've said this already on this podcast, but that is I think the
I
recurring theme of everybody's like do the thing, do the weird thing,
It's
right?
going to be better if you do the weird thing because it's what
Yeah.
your brain wants to do.
Yeah.
I sometimes push myself to be weirder, like not to like push myself to edgelord territory, but I'll be like, is there a weirder way I could get here? Like what is there a secret voice in the back of my mind going, but what if we did this? Oh no, we couldn't do that. Like what
But
is
what if
that?
we did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um which is how you end up getting again like a weird breastfeeding adjacent scene in Starving Saints with some honey going on. Um
I mean, I think I don't know. That book has captured my friend group for the past year. So I
it
don't
so I wrote that back in 2020. And my publisher at the time, actually the Graceview Patient's publisher, was like, "It's too weird for us. Like, it's a good book, but it's too weird. So can we maybe wait to publish it?" It eventually found a different home because they kept saying that. But like, I've been obsessed with that book since 2020, so it has that effect on people.
yeah, there's multiple people I've mentioned. I'm going to be interviewing Caitlin Starling. They're like, oh, I'm Starving Saints. I'm like, yes, yes, exactly. Um, what was the last book you read that evoked a visceral physical reaction?
Hmm. I've forgotten every single book I've ever read in my life.
That's what happens when I ask this question.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm luckily I have a bookshelf right here, so I'm staring at it and being like, have I read any of those in the last year? Um, The answer, of course, is no. These I've just been reading digitally. Um, so I read the Employees by Olga Robin. I think it's Robin,
Okay.
which is a Danish. She's a Danish writer, and it's a very weird set of non chronological vignettes of interviews with various employees at this company, some of whom are human and some of whom are synthetic humans, as they
Okay.
react to weird items that have been brought on the ship that they're on. Um, and like it's definitely on the literary side of things. I definitely wish I'd gotten to know a little bit more about the actual items. It's very much like a do I need to read this book 3 times to really put it all together? But it definitely made me like uneasy in a very real way. Um, so I'll go with that one.
Okay. That's again another book. I'll put it on my TBR.
It's very short, so
That's oh my gosh, thank God. I would that's whenever I get people who are like, you should read this book. I'm like, how long is it? 100 pages. I'm like, oh, thank God for that. I don't have time for this. So many books. I need to write books sometimes. Uh, what is a practice that helps keep your writing momentum going?
um, let's see. I don't always do it, but I will often stop in the middle of a scene to pick it up the next day. Um, that way I'm not kind of like, oh, I got to a nice stopping point and now my brain is stopped. I pretty much know how many words a day I can write and still get the rest of my life done.
Right.
It is lower now that I've had a child.
Yeah.
Um, but I grew up doing National Novel Writing Month before it got super shady. And that kind of trained me on a like marathon bursts, like 2000 words, 1600 to 2000 words a day for a month. And then you're done. So, obviously that's for only 50,000 words. My books are longer than 50,000 words usually, but I kind of do the same system where I pick when I'm going to start the book. I have the outline already, and then I used to write at that same pace until the book was done. Now I write a little bit like more like 1,000 words a day, but I write as much as I can every single day until the book is done. With if I can swing it like a weekend of marathon writing to like to see how many words I can get on the page. Um, I think that mostly works for me because A, I have the outline, and B, I've been doing it for so long that I know how to do it without writing filler.
Right. Yeah.
But it means, I mean, and I still do the thing that I learned to do during Starving Saints where I will jump around between scenes or parts of a scene if I get stuck. Like, usually it's because I don't know how to like logistically lead into like a transition of like people moving through a scene or something. So I'll just hop to after they've moved. And then when I go back to write the connective tissue, it either is I have an idea that makes it interesting and therefore it's longer, or it's short because we didn't really need it anyway. And I just want to connect the pieces up. Um, so that's always like it started as a way to get around some pretty intense anxiety, and now it's just like a way to keep moving within the writing session until I get my words. And then the nice thing is, okay, so I went to write the fun stuff to get my words done for the day. Well, tomorrow all I have to do is like basically do this little worksheet of connecting these parts, and I've got half my words for the day. And now I can find something fun to do.
This is brilliant. Keeping all this, I'm using this literally tomorrow. The I like that very much. Let's do one more question. What's your gateway horror media?
This is interesting. I think it's reading weird things on the internet.
What? Okay, which weird things on the internet?
So like okay, very weird smattering of things that I encountered when I was like 11 to 14 on the internet unsupervised back in the early 2000s.
Okay.
There was a story that I think it's basically called Maggot Girl
Okay.
that
Sounds
was,
very
and
familiar.
I think you can still find it, but it was supposedly a true story, in the vein of all those fun ones, of
Yeah.
a girl who got sexually obsessed with the idea of having maggots inside of her. So she would like climb in dumpsters and put rotting meat inside of her body.
Oh my god.
And then she got more and more sick as this habit continued and blah, blah, blah. This was very funny because at one point I was like, when I first met Eric LaRocca, I was like, Eric, have you read this? And he was like, oh yeah. And I'm like,
I was gonna.
I knew it.
I
I knew it.
immediately was like, that's like an Eric LaRocca story.
And there's a couple people who I have like gotten like, met online, got along with, and then at some point we find out we both read that as a kid, and I'm like, yep, that says something. Like that's not the kind of story that I write, but it's in my head as like a when I it is the experience I had reading that is something that I'm like, can I make people feel that way with the stories I want to tell? Like I don't think I go quite that far, but like it would be neat. Like it's kind of like a goal to marry what I like writing with that feeling at some point. So there's that. Then just like I'm one of those people who, especially, maybe up till 5 years ago, I really liked just reading summaries of horror movies, like especially extreme horror movies that I have no interest in ever seeing, but like reading what happens in a Serbian film.
Oh,
Um,
well, I
and then,
would I would
yeah,
say that no one needs to go watch a Serbian film. That's a thing that is the right take for a
yeah.
Serbian film. Don't watch it. Just read the summary and you'll get enough.
So, but then also reading real life things like various true crime situations. I feel bad for not remembering her name, but the Japanese girl that was tortured to death over like a month or so by a group of boys, like came across that on the internet way early in my existence, reading about historical war crimes. Basically, I would find things like they would provoke a physical emotional response in me, and I would just kind of poke at it and see how far, like, it was like a fascination of like, why am I feeling this way, and do I like this feeling? Like my spouse is like, I'll tell him, because I like listening to stuff like Last Podcast on the Left and Behind the Bastards, and I'll, which is tame comparatively, but I'll be telling him stories of terrible things that happened in real life, and he's like, why do you do this? why is this why is this what you spend your limited free time doing, and like, how is this comforting to you? And I'm like, it feels weirder not knowing about this stuff because it still happened. Like, me not knowing about it does not mean it doesn't exist. And the fact that I know that stuff like that happens, my brain won't let me stop noticing it, you know? So I think that's probably like where my horror media entry was, because I for the longest time was convinced that I didn't like horror because I was too much of a scaredy cat. And I think a lot of that's because when I was growing up, it was like the Saw era of
Right.
horror, and I wasn't into
Yeah.
that. But I got a used copy of The Ring from Blockbuster. Watched that. I was 12. I My dad was like, "I'll get it for you, but I will not watch it with you. It's like your funeral." And I was like, going into his office every 5 minutes, going, "Dad, you have to come see this." He's like, "No, I will not be coming to see that." I really, I got back on in the GameCube days. I got um oh my god, what's it called? My brain is saying Edge of Darkness, but that's not right. It,
I know you're thinking of.
Eternal Darkness, Sanity's
Yes.
Requiem. Yeah,
Yes.
I got that. Like, I would pick up horror adjacent video games all the time. Like, I remember playing, I think, The Clock Tower. I think that's one of them. Um, and then I would just be like, "Oh, but I don't like horror." And I would, like, be obsessed with watching Halloween specials of things, but, "Oh, I don't like horror." And I think a lot of that is that concepts of the types of people who like horror, although they were all my friends, so I don't know why I was like, "Oh, I'm different." But also, I'm really sensitive to music cues, like, in
Yeah.
horror, and it's a very cheap trick. Like, and it's like, oh, I don't, like, I feel kind of like my nervous system's getting hijacked and not in a fun way. But anyway, I have since starting to write horror novels and being like, and embracing the fact that like Luminous Dead, I didn't set out to write a horror novel, but it's very clearly a horror novel. And I was like, oh, I guess this is just how my brain works. I'm now like intentionally seeking out horror media to engage with, um, more actively. But it was a weird, like, I, especially doing interviews, people ask me that, and I'm like, oh, I didn't watch any horror stuff. Yes, I did. I watched May with a friend at a sleepover once. It was,
Yeah, May is absolutely a horror movie. It's a strange one,
yeah.
you
I
know.
mean, and I've always liked the stranger
Yeah.
horror stuff.
May's
I'm
great
not
though. I
not a
need
big
to
slasher fan. Am a big whatever was going on in a Dark Song fan.
That's a good way to describe that.
I love
Um
that book. It's like, or that movie, like Death of I saw it after writing Death of Jane Lawrence, and I'm like, these two go together.
that's always fun when you find something after and you're like, this feels just like the thing I
I hadn't
made.
seen The Descent until after I wrote The
Yeah,
Luminous Dead. And then I'm
that's
watching The Descent, and I'm like,
that
well,
is absolutely crazy.
I'm impressed by their climbing, the attention to detail in the climbing. They're getting that stuff right. I'm like, but how are these women not all lesbians? How are they not like
I
this
mean,
group of friends
there's one in
clearly
there.
has history. They have hit like, I have known these women and they have all cheated on each other with each other.
I think if they remade The Descent
Yeah.
today, it would absolutely would do.
I have to
Yeah.
believe.
And maybe I mean, I don't want them to because that movie is basically perfect in
Yeah.
a lot of other ways. I even like the ending, the original ending,
Mhm.
not the. This sounds like my second favorite horror movie, I think. Um, and I
What's your favorite?
of The Thing,
Okay. I still need
but
to see it. I have not seen The Thing.
well, it's like I turned into a Kermit. It's The Thing. I love that, and they're The Thing is all male cast, isolated setting, paranoia,
Mhm.
descent, all female cast, isolated setting, paranoia, different, there's different,
Yeah.
monsters in them, but there's a reason I love both of them so much. And yes, if you like The Descent, you'll like The Thing. It has Kurt Russell wearing a funny hat.
Excellent.
What's
And
not to
then I
like
can
about
and
it?
I'll follow it up by, I'm sorry, Sarah Gailey, that I haven't done it yet, finally reading Spread Me,
That's also my TBR, and I haven't read it either.
which is
So
The Thing, but in the desert and sexy.
yeah, that's. I mean, again, I'm like, ooh, I don't get. Stop digging. You got me. What's your question for our next guest?
Oh, what's the weirdest trick you've used to get yourself writing?
It's a good question.
As a follow-on to my weird end runs that I do to get myself get words on the page.
That I am interviewing Viggy Parhampton tomorrow.
I'm
All,
right now
all,
I'm reading A Veritable Household Pet.
that's what we're going to be talking about. I,
Cool.
I read I read your book and hers back to back, which nice,
Ver
good bookends.
This is a very minor detail in that book, but I had to DM her going, "Yeah, scromiting mention," which is scream vomiting that
Right.
people do if they smoke way too much weed, consume way too much cannabis. But scromiting is the industry term in medical care for it, which I have learned from lurking on our emergency medicine.
Oh my god, there really is a subreddit for everything.
Our anesthesiology is fantastic. They're going to be mad at me for
Our
mentioning that it
anis
exists.
I don't know if I have the bravery to
I mean,
go
it's people talking about their jobs. Like it's pretty,
okay.
but there are some fun things. Like I learned what a pelvic exenteration is from lurking over there, which is where you open the abdomen, you take out all the organs to clean them up, and then you put them back in. It's usually a case, you usually do it with like advanced bowel or uterine cancer, where you're going to be removing some of the organs too, but like you also need to remove masses and things like that. Um, it, it, it happens in Milk Teeth in
I
the vampire book.
okay, good.
Because
Well,
I was like, this needs to show up in my book. It doesn't happen on screen. A character references having taken part in a pelvic exenteration.
okay.
A medical professional who is doing it for therapeutic purposes. But it was like it was a fun little this is thematically relevant to this book. It's coming up.
See, this is I feel like this is I don't feel like I feel like I'm so desensitized to horror because I've exposed myself to the darkest, deepest, horrible things, and then you bring up this idea of this surgical procedure, and I'm like,
It's
maybe I
not
haven't.
it's no longer common because
Okay,
we A, earlier detection of cancers, B, different treatment options. But sometimes, yeah, you gotta have to just take out most of the abdominal organs and reroute what's left.
just hearing it makes me. So I mean, maybe that's what I need to write. I need to write a book about that because it'll poke at all the horrible parts of myself.
Yeah, and then
Um,
just find a surgeon to fact check your work.
I do know some. I know some. I have some doctor friends. I'm sure they could point me in the right direction. That's it. I mean, overtime for the second act. It's time for the last segment. It's time for blood.
Okay.
It's time for trouble. It's time for hardship, for things you're struggling with or have struggled with. Meaning, and it could be nuts and bolts, mechanical things. It could be philosophy of writing, ethics, or whatever it could be. There's no try and keep it as
Yeah.
wide open as possible.
Well, we talked
Uh,
about the thing of am I writing the same book over and over again, which is evergreen.
are you worried
But
about that now?
um less now,
Less
but I
now.
think that's because I'm not in so I'm at the stage where I need to write it's a companion novel to The Starving Saints, so same world after the events but very little character overlap, not really a sequel. So that's what's up to write next and I have an outline for that and then after that it's just pitch zone. So like I know that the next outline doesn't it has some greatest hits. They're going in a cave again. Um but like structure of the story wise it feels pretty distinct so I'm not too worried about that. Um, but there is the, oh god, are people who like Starving Saints going to like this one, because there's very limited cannibalism in this one. It's a different threat in this book. It's the same world, similar, not the same character dynamics, but you've still got, a shitty lady knight and some other stuff. Basically, it's almost like I took the three main characters in Starving Saints and then like put him in a box and shook him up and took him out in a different configuration, which is leading to a very different plot structure, which is fun to me, but I don't know if it'll be fun to everyone else. So we'll see. Um, I think the biggest thing though that's tough is mid-career is figuring out where you want your work to go in the future, right? Like, so I've had three publishers. I have St. Martin's Press, which did Death of Jane Lawrence, Last Leave the Room, Graceview Patient, and is publishing Milk Teeth. I have Harper Voyager, which did The Luminous Dead, The Starving Saints, and The Waking Stones, which is the next book. And I have Neon Hemlock, which is a small queer press where my novellas come out. And St. Martin's Press and Harper Voyager have different audiences, which is why they are coexisting at the same time. It's how Starving Saints and Graceview Patient came out in the same year. But moving forward, I have to decide, do I want to keep both? Do I want to focus on one or the other? Do I want a third option that is not there? And trying to balance that against wanting to like continue to have books coming out on a regular schedule because I can write them on a regular schedule. Because if you jump ship, it kind of starts the clock all over again, things like that. And it's not a done deal. Like I can't guarantee that anyone else would want to publish my books. So that sort of thing is very difficult to deal with. I am a very like type A and logistics focused person with anxiety, and not having a clear path for the future, but still having ideas I want to write is tough, because it's okay, when do I need to make this decision by? How do I make this decision? Am I going to get it wrong? Which is
Yeah.
also, it's champagne problems, right? I have two publishers, three publishers.
I mean,
But
I don't know. It is this been this interesting dynamic when I mean I try and interview all kinds of authors who are on different parts of their careers, and I don't know. Like it reminds me of Michael Wehunt. He was on and we talked about October Film Haunt, but he was talking about his next book, and I was like, well, now I'm a traditionally published author. I have to write this kind of book, and how do I do that? How do I shape myself to write this kind of thing? And what do I do as I pursue the middle to later into my career, as now that I'm a traditionally published author with big novels. And it's this, I don't know, there it never stops being hard. That's the thing. It's there's the hardships, you're facing different hardships, you're facing
yeah.
different struggle, different challenges. I'm also a very type A anxiety driven person, so I understand. Do you have a thought process of how you're going to, is it I'm like, well, it's still chase ideas that excite me and let that figure it out, or
Yeah, it's a lot of conversations with my agent, kind of checking in at various points of like, okay, what do I want? How reasonably can I ask for it? What do we think so and so's response is going to be? Um, it A lot of it is waiting, which I hate. Like I would like to resolve this and I can't.
yeah,
Some of it is like it's a weird sort of not wanting to violate the brand that I've somehow managed to build of like what a Caitlin Starling book is, because I did not originally set out to write many contemporary books. That was a publisher influence choice because, like I said, they looked at SMP looked at Starving Saints and went, that doesn't really fit our readership. And the ideas that they ended up liking more were contemporary ideas that more crossover with like thriller readers and women's fiction readers and things like that.
right.
And so, lastly, The Room, The Graceview Patient, and Milk Teeth are all contemporary. Milk Teeth, I think, always they're books that need to be contemporary, and I love them, and they are like books that I am very proud of. But okay, now I've gone back to Starving Saints, and that's fantasy horror, and I've written sci-fi horror, and it's this interesting thing of like, could I write books with not oops all lesbians, and would that feel like a betrayal to some of my readers at this point? And is that like how much weight does that carry versus like artistic impulses and things like that, and versus the time that we are living in, and is it, where is my artistic impulse coming from all sorts of fun things that are just like, let me just write a book. I just want to go write a book.
I yes, I did. That's the problem is we have there's the you have to factor in the world and trying to in capitalism, right?
Yeah.
You have to that's the I don't know. I do push back against I don't know. I was at some panel and I was talking about uh what do you decide to someone asked in the Q&A like, how do you decide what you want to write next? Well, like I do chase things that excite me, but a
Mhm.
lot of things excite me. And I do consider like, well, I have all these books out and they are like this. And I have readers who expect this. And I have started to push back against that. And
Mhm.
I have noticed people do rankle. People do. And like you can't it's not like, oh, just ignore them. I'm like, I'm trying to make money as well. Like I'm trying to pay my bills.
Yeah.
And it's like you can't and like just chase your heart, whatever story. I'm like, well, I use the example of I have a very strange idea about two race car drivers in the 90s who love Dune.
Mhm.
And that's I can't like that's it'd be a magical realism, very strange story that none of my readers would want.
Yeah,
They
and then you have to weigh like, okay, do you just split off a new pen name for that kind of stuff? But then you have no real like you have to start all over
you
into
have to start all over.
and or is it an open secret pen name? But what impact does that have and all that?
I
Yeah.
mean, and like all that stuff is like, I don't want to think about all that.
I just
That's
want to
so
write the
much.
book.
That's
Yeah.
so much work. I have to then I can't even manage my one career. I have to manage two. I can't do that.
2 social media identities? No.
Oh, I can't even imagine. I don't know how.
Yeah,
No,
I know people who do it, and I don't I'm
I mean,
impressed.
I don't know anyone personally, but I know of them. You know,
Mhm.
Nick Cutter, famous. He's the first person that comes to mind. Is like who I met. I read those books first. And I'm like, oh, it's Nick Cutter isn't a real person. You know, it's just it's a pen name. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, I guess it's like there is that capitalistic like we have to. I'm always a person I'm always excited when you describe. Oh, I want to write a different kind of book. I'd be like, oh, I'm excited when an author chases a new thing that's off their brand. I'm like, I want to read that more now because it's different.
Yeah, my agent very early on was like, "Okay, yeah, your books are all different from each other, but they're all definitely Caitlin Starling books." Like, and it is and like when I was at 3 books, some people kind of got that, but a lot of people were like, why are they all different? And now that I'm like at 5 plus 2 novellas, people are like, oh yeah, no, just like you'll get a Caitlin Starling book, but it like there'll be there's enough similarities that if you like the base premise of one of them, even if it's not your usual setting, you're probably still gonna like it. And so I've seen people, especially people who started with the Starving Saints, going out to other things, which is fun to watch.
I'm trying to push people. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's a coincidence that my best friend lesbian couple love the Starving Saints. It's not like complicated. It's very simple. It's like that is effectively their relationship that you're writing about. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like I would happily read anything. Like I'd go, oh, once I know an author, I'm like, oh, I they're gonna try something new. That's
I
exciting.
yeah, there I mean, yeah, there are authors who I'm like, "Please try something new. I want to see a different part of your brain. I've seen the same part of your brain 5 times, and it's a great part of your brain, but I am ready for something new." Um, and yeah, I also just I am so terrified of repeating myself, and I already see where I repeat themes and stuff like that. I can't imagine doing a book that's intentionally similar to another book that I've written. Like, The Waking Stones is already pushing it. Um, but again, like Starving Saints is and somehow this is a spoiler, even though I thought it was very obvious in the book. The creatures in the Starving Saints are fairies. That's why
Yeah,
they
I mean, it's explicitly.
yeah,
I
like,
feel like
they
it's
don't
explicitly
like
called out
iron,
multiple times.
they
Yeah.
you eat their food, and they want your name. Like, they're
I was gonna
fairies.
say, like, I immediately went, "Oh, yeah."
Some people don't like it turns out the iron thing is not necessarily common knowledge anymore among readers, which blows my mind,
I
but
mean,
it
I picked it out without I mean, the iron thing makes becomes explicit at a
yeah,
certain point, but I picked up
yeah.
that
It was always so anyway, that's the fairy
halfway.
book.
Yeah.
Waking Stones is the troll book.
Ooh,
And so
I
it deals
do like
with
a troll book.
different concepts, different concerns, different character traits, and like social interactions. And So it's different, and so it's different characters dealing with different things. And again, like I said, not as much cannibalism. Still very toxic interpersonal dynamics. So like we still got that.
Yeah.
And for those cave enjoyers out there, some caving stuff.
Cave enjoyers.
Because trolls are rock based. So, but yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I respect people who authors who put out, a reliable, this is a very, like, exactly what to expect getting into a book from them, and you're just looking for the little twist. But it could not be me. I get hives. I have to jump all over the place between
I
books.
literally can't write. Literally, that's I don't. Nothing blocks me, but that does. Like when it's like, oh, just write us the same book you already did. I'm like,
But I did it.
I
I already
did
wrote
it.
that book.
Yeah. Why do I need to write it again? Um, I think. I mean, I don't know. I, I, I think you know better than I would about how to handle all. It feels like you're doing it. You are handling it.
Hmm.
It's just gonna take time.
Yeah.
You'll be fine. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have words of wisdom for this. It's more like that's completely uncharted territory for me. But I mean, there's also, I think, plenty of authors out there who have navigated that stuff
Hmm.
and probably would be quite happy to
Yeah.
help. We're very nice people. We're very nice people. We're not out of time. There's no podcast police. They won't stop us. But we're hitting an hour, which is like, I don't
Yeah.
know.
And I do have a day job, so I do have
Exactly.
to do
We're
have
at it.
to run along. But
Exactly. Before we go, Caitlin, where can people find you online? Where can they find all your stuff?
yeah, I am much less active on social media the last several years, but if you do want to find me, the best place is probably on Instagram, which is something I thought I'd never say. At author C Starling. That's where you're going to get the most like useful updates. I also have a newsletter over at my website, CaitlinStarling.com. I will email you maybe a couple times a year, largely just because of book releases. You're not going to get like loving Substack essays or anything like that because I am tired. And I'm on Blue Sky at CaitlinStarling.com, mostly complaining about our flea infestation. At the moment, hopefully it'll be a short time limited
I
event.
was going to say, by the time people hear
We're
this,
we're we're a week into the war against fleas. So
thank you, Caitlin, for joining me. I really appreciate it.
yeah, thank you for having me.